Today I'm visiting with Craig Uden from Cozad, Nebraska, and Craig is a cattle feeder in Nebraska that's attending the National Cattlemen's Beef Association summer meetings in Denver. And I was visiting with Craig about some of the issues that are impacting the industry right now as a result of the drought. And one of the issues we were talking about was decisions for cow-calf producers in regards to early weaning. And Craig, as an experienced cattle feeder over the years and seeing different situations, what kind of recommendations would you give a cow-calf producer trying to decide whether they should early wean, and what are some options they should consider with that?
Okay. One thing I do is I also run a lot of cows myself, and I'm in the same boat as everybody else. And what we learned back in the early 2000s is don't be afraid to wean these calves. They'll wean pretty easy when they weigh 3.5 to 4. They really need to be somewhere in that 90 to 100 days, and they need to be kept close. They won't eat a lot for the first day or two, but we've seen these calves just respond, and as far as health and everything, those cattle have been very successful because they don't have the body mass that a 6.5 weight calf normally would have, so they really get up and going pretty fast. And when it is drouthy like this, they seem to wean quicker because they're already out there picking themselves because it is dry. One reason you might want to wean early, if you have adequate grass to carry the cow to winter range or corn stalks or something like that, that's why we're weaning today. We've been weaning this week, last week, next week, and we think we'll have enough grass in my situation to get to corn stalks. But we've taken a lot of these calves from 300 pounds, 400 pounds, and they'll still weigh 13, 14. They'll get to the mature weight. If a guy wants to go to a grow yard or a feed yard, in our case, we've got a lot of retained ownership, and we've been doing this. So we're taking some calves in next week from some of our ranchers, and those calves will be fed all the way out. You'll find those calves are a little more efficient, and some people maybe don't want to feed them all the way through. They need to work with somebody that maybe has this experience where they can grow those calves. You sure don't want to overfeed them. You want the calf to tell you. You want to shoot for normally the same thing that calf would be gaining on that cow at this point would be somewhere around that 1.5, 1.6 pounds per day. That's really all the gain you really need. And so some people ask me, what about preconditioning the calves? If you want a little later, this would be the normal time of preconditioning. On these light calves, what we normally do is bring those calves in, say the 1st of August. If we're going to precondition 15th, 20th of August, that's when we'll give them the shots, because they're going to get enough natural immunity off their mother until they're about 400 pounds, 450, 5, somewhere in there. So that's one reason we normally precondition in that time, is those calves start losing their immunity, so that's why we vaccinate. And I think you can continue to use your vaccination program the same way as you were going to, only they'll be in a grow yard or a feed yard instead of on the cow.
So if somebody has never had the opportunity, they're used to selling their calves maybe October or November when they've reached that weaning weight that they've set that goal for, and now the calves are lighter than that, they don't have the feed, so they're thinking of early weaning, but they've never really worked with a backgrounder or a feeder. What are a couple key points that they should discuss as they contact cattle feeders or backgrounders about taking, either retaining ownership in calves or just selling to a yard to give it a little more pounds on them?
Well, I think the main thing is you need to ask questions. Have these grow yards ever done this before? How familiar are they? Ask them questions like, well, what can I expect for a gain on these calves? And when I said we want to get a 1.5, 1.6, that's kind of to that mid-September or 1st of October, then the calves ought to be gaining more. So that person that's handling your calves needs to, you don't want them to push them too hard at this early age. You want them to gain that 1.5 for the next, till that calf would normally be weaned, and then from that point on, they can gain to 2.5 to 3, and make sure they don't get them too fleshy if you want to sell them down the way. I know it's a real challenging issue the way the prices of cattle have fell due to the drought and the numbers of cattle moving, but and the price of grain and everything, but these calves will be pretty efficient, particularly to the October 1, 15th time frame, and they'll stay pretty efficient all the way into November, December. We've got a lot of people that normally would grow calves and then look at reselling them sometime later. But the hard part of this whole thing is the market's down now. Will it recover?
Right.
But you'll get some compensatory gain, but these calves will be very efficient at this light weight.
Okay, well, great. Well, thank you very much for your comments. And do you have any closing comments for cattle feeders, or what you're hearing from our cattle producers, or what you're hearing from fellow producers here at NCBA in regards to the extensiveness of the drought?
Well, this drought is it's a little more unique than most because it covers such a wide area. In past droughts, there's been an availability to bring in feed from an outside source or move the cattle to a different location. But when you look from how dry it is, basically from Tennessee to Idaho and from North Dakota to still in Texas, it's a pretty big area. So we don't have those options. I think the industry is, we know our numbers are, that we just heard that we're going to be a million head less calves. So future looks really bright, but we got a severe bump in the road. But I think the main thing producer needs to do is he just needs to get through this thing, and he's going to have to look at the future. I mean, we were expecting a pretty good payday this year through all segments of the industry, and now we're kind of dealt the cards we got to deal with. But once we get through this, we should, when moisture comes, we'll be in pretty good shape. So I know it's not fun time right now, but hang in there, it'll get better.
Great. Well, thank you very much, Craig, for taking a few minutes to visit with us about decisions that cow-calf producers could make in regards to early weaning and working with backgrounders and feeders. Thank you very much.
Thank you.